Hoy en Adelante, importantes conversaciones. Greisa Martínez-Rosas de United We Dream sobre la justicia inmigratoria. Noe-Bustamante del Pew Research Center analizando la opinión latina sobre Donald Trump. La activista Kayla Kuo de Milwaukee Anti-War sobre el activismo por la paz. Acompáñanos. De vuelta en Adelante, nos acompaña Greisa Martínez-Rosas, directora ejecutiva de United We Dream, la red de jóvenes inmigrantes más grande del país, representando a más de 1 millón de jóvenes. Una líder visionaria, beneficiaria de DACA y defensora incansable de la dignidad y la justicia.
My name is Greisa Martínez-Rosas. I'm the daughter of Luis and Elia Martinez. My mother and my grandfather were both leaders in the church. I am from the Otomi people of the Central Valley of Mexico. When I was 7 years old, my family and I made the journey to the US from Hidalgo, Mexico. My mother and my father made the difficult and courageous decision to make a new life for their families and their 4 little girls here. We decided the only way that we could come here was through crossing the Rio Grande waters. And I remember how cold the water was. Sometimes I still feel the cold in my skin. I remember almost losing my mother to the current of the Rio Grande. I just also remember making it to the other side and being so grateful that my parents had been courageous and had brought us here. We grew up in Dallas, Texas, and in that same tightness that we had to hold each other as we moved through the waters of the Rio Grande Valley, we remained tight in that way and made a life here in the US. I remember being in elementary school and feeling really scared about being found out for being undocumented. That fear almost ate me up. It almost made me feel like I didn't belong here, that we had done something wrong, that I should just keep my head bowed and not ask many questions and just be grateful for it. But in my late teens, when I was a senior in high school, and I saw the passage of the Sensenbrenner bill, and the bill in itself would say that people like my mother and father, who had given up so much, who woke up every morning to build our family, would be treated as criminals. And not only that, the people that would choose to help us would also be criminalized. And I just couldn't take it. I couldn't take the idea of that. And so when I was a senior in high school, my friends and I organized a high school walkout, much like the walkouts that we're seeing in North Carolina today, and LA and Chicago. I felt unstoppable by then, that I had a voice, that I should shout from the rooftops. Unfortunately, my life has been dotted by very daunting challenges in life. When I was a sophomore in college, my dad was detained and summarily deported after just a couple of days. We did not have the legal support that we needed. We didn't have money enough to pay. That feeling of being a teenager and feeling so helpless, and the inspiration and the guidance from the members of United We Dream, that led us to this year to launch the Defending Our Neighbors Fund to ensure that people in the US had access to due process and to a lawyer. And this fund, in partnership with the American Civil Liberties Union and the Abundant Futures Fund, has raised now $12.8 million towards legal defense of immigrants, just like my dad. That story is part of the reason why I believe in youth organizing and why I believe in the power of young people to transform. I'm not special. What I have inside of me is what's inside of everyone, every young person, every immigrant child. But I was really lucky to be able to have opportunities to channel that strength and those gifts. And part of my work at United We Dream is to do that for many, many other young people.
You started from the bottom. Tell us about that part of your life.
United We Dream has been a home for me and many others to be able to grow, to grow our skills, to grow our spirit, to grow our power, our voice. When I first entered the organization, I was a member, someone that was part of the big 2010 mobilizations to Washington, D.C. in fighting for the DREAM Act. It's the same places where that Sensenbrenner bill took place. I was there calling on members of Congress to pass the DREAM Act. Unfortunately, fail in the Senate. Now have the great responsibility to be what I call a good ancestor, a good big sister to the young people that are now in high school and in college, just like I was in that time. Support them in their leadership of changing the conditions of this country for the better.
What would you say are the most important challenges right now for United We Dream?
Well, there has never been a more important time to be a young leader. There has never been a more important time to be an advocate for the rights of working people. And there has never been a more important time to be a proud immigrant than this time. It's also the darkest time in our history. We are seeing in this moment young people, children of 7 years old, just like I was when I crossed the border, having to defend themselves in front of an immigration judge without any legal support or any parents with them. We're seeing the disappearances of our loved ones every day while they're going to work only because of the color of their skin, because they look Latino, because they speak Spanish, because they look Asian, because they look Southeast Asian. It is challenging and horrifying time that unfortunately I think history will look upon with a lot of shame for the people that are making these decisions. But history will also tell the stories of the young people of United We Dream that are organizing in their communities and hosting. It is also the story of the young people that got their teammate, their soccer teammate out of detention because they made the calls and they organized. This moment, what's most important for United We Dream is two things. One is to bring together this new generation of leaders that are rising up all across the country. And two, to remind each other that even though it's immigrants that are at the center of the fight right now, everything that's happening to our communities is about our collective future. We have a shared future, whether you're undocumented or not, whether you're an immigrant or not. If you're someone that's a working person here in this country, this is a horrifying moment and you're not alone. Many of us are horrified by what's happening in our communities, in our neighborhoods, how immigrants are being hunted, literally hunted in every single street in this country, followed into childcare centers, and ICE agents covered their faces and detaining people. But what is exciting about the Defending Our Futures Fund is that millions of Americans are taking an action together and saying, not my neighbor, not this moment, not today, not ever.
Greisa, what would you tell to those who want these deportation actions to continue?
More people like me to be detained and deported. To the people that continue to support that agenda of hate, I will say, I love you. This is my country. This is your country. We have an opportunity to make this better. To the kids that are being separated from their parents and those that are harmed, that every day wake up feeling afraid about what's going to happen to them, I will say, you're not alone. We're fighting for you. To those people that are standing up and organizing in this moment, I say thank you, and we're going to win. It is always a small group of people that are standing up for each other to not lose hope, to take the rest that you need in this moment. Let's rest up and then come back, because this is our country. Whether I am inside of its borders or outside of it. For the Latinos, los Mexicanos, Venezolanos, Colombianos, wherever part of Latin America you're from, I want to remind you that we have something inside of us that no one can take away, which is our love for one another, our culture, our delicious food. That there is power in being Latino in this country. Benito or Bad Bunny reminds us to take many more photos and remember the good times that we'll have with our families now, and to not give up and give in to the fear.
My name is Greisa Martínez-Rosas. I am undocumented, unafraid, queer, and unashamed. We have come too far. We will not turn around. We will flood the streets with justice because we are freedom bound. Those are the words of a Black poet, June Jordan, and they ring true today. Power! Transformation! Miracles! I want it! I need it! I got to have
Datos cruciales para el panorama electoral. Nos acompaña Luis Noe-Bustamante, investigador asociado del Pew Research Center, para desglosar su reciente informe sobre la opinión de la comunidad latina respecto al presidente Donald Trump.
Nosotros tratamos de abarcar ampliamente cómo va la situación de los latinos en el país. Al mismo tiempo, quisimos preguntarles cómo evaluaban el primer año de la nueva administración del presidente Trump y dos puntos que fueron claves antes de la elección del año pasado y continúan siendo temas muy importantes tanto para los latinos como para la población de Estados Unidos más ampliamente, que son en la economía y la situación financiera de los latinos y sus experiencias con las políticas de migración en el país.
Encontramos un declive en la aceptación del presidente Trump entre la comunidad latina en general. ¿Pudieras tú hablarnos de este resultado de la encuesta?
Sí, nuestra encuesta de octubre encontró que la aprobación del presidente Trump ha disminuido en relación a sus primeras semanas desde que asumió su segundo término. Y eso incluye una leve disminución en la aprobación dentro de los latinos que votaron por él. Un estudio reciente también llevado a cabo en el Pew Research Center, nosotros encontramos que más o menos la mitad de los votantes latinos votaron por el presidente Trump. Y él goza de un apoyo fuerte, entre ellos aún, pero sí hemos visto que esa aprobación ha disminuido en el transcurso del año. Otro hallazgo importante en nuestro reporte es que la mayoría de los latinos dicen que la situación actual de ellos como grupo está peor este año en relación al año anterior. Esta es una pregunta que hemos hecho casi por 2 décadas y es la primera vez que encontramos que una mayoría de los latinos adultos en el país dicen que la situación está peor. En cuanto al futuro, tendremos que ver esta evaluación negativa y que se ha vuelto un poco más crítica en el transcurso del año, qué tanto impacto eso tiene en las elecciones congresional del 2026.
Uno de los asuntos que más se escuchaba por parte de los latinos que apoyaban a Trump es que él iba a elevar las condiciones de la economía en este país. ¿Cómo encuentra esta encuesta este contraste en este momento?
Una de nuestras preguntas puntuales fue en nuestra encuesta de octubre fue si las condiciones habían mejorado o empeorado desde que el presidente Trump asumió su segundo término y encontramos que 6 de cada 10 latinos dicen que las condiciones han empeorado y solo un 15% dice que las condiciones han mejorado desde que él asumió la presidencia.
Otro aspecto importante, Luis, es el aspecto de la inmigración. ¿Qué resultados qué nos podrías decir tú respecto de las respuestas a esta otra línea?
Ampliamente encontramos que 7 de cada 10 latinos desaprueban la forma como la administración de Donald Trump está llevando a cabo sus políticas de migración. Al mismo tiempo, la mayoría de los latinos dicen que la forma como se están llevando a cabo las deportaciones en el país es demasiado fuerte. Y el porcentaje que dice que el gobierno está haciendo demasiado en cuanto a la forma que está llevando a cabo las deportaciones, incluso ha aumentado comparado a las primeras semanas de este segundo término del presidente Trump.
Porque es importante hablar e enfocarse en la polarización que en un momento se dio o que en este momento existe entre el grupo que votó en algún momento por Trump y el grupo que votó en un momento por Harris.
La mitad de los latinos aproximadamente votaron por el presidente Trump, la otra mitad votaron por la ex vicepresidenta Harris. Esto es un cambio en relación a elecciones anteriores, donde el candidato del Partido Demócrata consistentemente en las últimas elecciones había ganado la mayoría del voto latino y hemos visto cómo con la figura de Donald Trump como candidato, el apoyo de los votantes latinos fue incrementando en sus 3 participaciones electorales, llegando a este punto alto para él, donde los latinos se dividieron. En cuanto a su voto. Si lo comparamos con su primer periodo, podemos ver que nos estamos acercando a los niveles de aprobación que tenía en esos primeros 4 años, donde su aprobación llegó alrededor del 20%.
¿Cómo se podían prolongar las tendencias de esta información que ustedes están obteniendo ahorita, siendo los latinos un grupo clave para la elección de los diferentes partidos que van a ser determinantes al final de esta administración?
Eso está aún por verse dependiendo de las condiciones en el país y dependiendo de cómo condiciones económicas especialmente cambian o no cambian. Previo a la elección del 2024, este era el tema principal para los latinos en cuanto a su voto, que aún mantienen una perspectiva muy negativa acerca de las condiciones actualmente y que muchos latinos están teniendo dificultades pagando servicios o cosas esenciales, dependiendo de cómo se puedan ajustar esas condiciones y el desempeño del gobierno, podría tener un impacto en el voto de los latinos en un grado mayor o menor al Partido Republicano, o si muchos apoyan al Partido Demócrata como una alternativa hacia el futuro.
¿Cuáles son los hallazgos más importantes que tú consideras que la comunidad en general y especialmente los latinos debemos de estar alertas?
Sí, hay un pesimismo creciente entre los latinos en general sobre su situación como grupo, la dirección del país y sobre la administración de Donald Trump, que hay mayores grados de preocupación sobre el tema migratorio y sobre las deportaciones en particular. Sí resaltaría que los latinos mantienen algún grado de optimismo hacia el futuro. Por ejemplo, la mitad dice que su situación financiera el próximo año va a estar mejor que este año. Obviamente es una proyección, pero denota algún grado de optimismo. Dentro de nuestros planes y metas, sí queremos continuar estudiando a esta creciente población y monitorear cómo sus perspectivas y opiniones acerca del país, de la administración actual y de otros temas se desarrolla en el nuevo año, el 2026.
Cambiamos el foco a activismo de base por la paz. Kayla Kuo, activista de Milwaukee Anti-War, nos habla sobre sus esfuerzos locales de protesta, la educación comunitaria y el papel de los jóvenes en la construcción de un movimiento pacifista.
The Milwaukee Anti-War Committee, we are a grassroots organization that was founded in November of 2022. And the goal of the Milwaukee Anti-War Committee is really to fight U.S. militarization and war abroad, but also the violence that we're facing here in the U.S. as well. For example, we're experiencing really expensive groceries. We know that healthcare is an issue, education, housing too. And yet, even while people are suffering and are struggling, our government is continuing to funnel millions of dollars to attack other countries. And so the goal of the Milwaukee Anti-War Committee is to educate people on, why it's important to fight back from here in the US, because we even suffer at the expense of the war machine, not just communities abroad.
What about who is a part of your organization?
We don't really have too many students. A lot of the students that we do work with, though, are part of Students for a Democratic Society at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. In terms of, the composition of MAC members, a lot of us are working class people that have full-time jobs and are doing this on the side because it's something that we believe in and we care about. And really just how important it is for community to stand together, whether it's to stand up for student rights, for immigrant rights, for reproductive justice. It's really important that we're able to unite and fight back.
In the United States, people think that this capture of the president of Venezuela is an act of abuse of power, it is an invasion, and it is totally out of the international laws. Some others oppose to that. What is the position that Milwaukee Anti-War in this United States-Venezuela situation?
Within the Milwaukee Anti-War Committee, we know that it is illegal to kidnap a sitting president, and so our call has been to release President Maduro. Whether or not people in Venezuela like him, it should not be the U.S. that is intervening in that country. And really, in response to the escalations against Venezuela and the military aggression that we have seen, the Milwaukee Anti-War Committee launched a campaign for the month of January called No War on Venezuela, which was a month of direct actions, specifically no U.S. intervention in Venezuela, and really for the U.S. to get its hands out of the entire Latin American region.
Where do you see the situation in Venezuela going from the point of view of your organization?
You know, I can't really predict what we're going to see. We know that Trump has claimed that he wants to control Venezuela, and so at least for the Milwaukee Anti-War Committee, we're going to continue to fight back so that Venezuela has its right to self-determination and to sovereignty, and it can figure out how it wants to use its vast wealth of oil resources. And that's not something that the U.S. should ever decide. And so no matter what, I think we will still continue to protest as long as the U.S. is intervening in Venezuela. We will be there protesting for the U.S. to get out and out of Latin America more broadly.
Kayla, one of the tools that your organization uses is to put pressure on representatives. What are you doing regarding this issue with Venezuela?
When we were launching our No War on Venezuela month of action, Representative Ryan Clancy was there. So we're working with representatives when we can, but we also know that direct action and pressure on the government is, going to be most effective. And so we're ready to escalate where needed if, our voices aren't being heard.
And do you think people in Wisconsin are getting involved and are making their voices to be heard in front of our political representatives?
Over the past year, I have seen way more people get mobilized and want to take action, which I think is so important. I think we're seeing a lot more people come out, whether they're students that are protesting for the first time and walking out of the classrooms, or even older folks that haven't protested ever before or in a while. And so I think it's really important for everyone to figure out how they can get involved. We can do a lot more when we're working together, and I think that's where a lot of the people power comes from.
In the history, students, very strong forces on creating change. Do you think we are moving towards that, or are we, at this moment of history, separated?
I don't think that we're separated. I think across the globe, they were kind of the ones that were lighting a fire across the country for people to fight for Palestine and to divest from Israel, and for the U.S. specifically to stop channeling weapons, fighter jets, and essentially like any sort of defense contracts that were going towards Israel and against the Palestinian people. And I think that was just a very clear moment that students are uniting people. They brought together so many different individual community members and organizations to essentially be on Palestine lawn at UWM. And so their encampment, at least here in Milwaukee, lasted for 14 days, which is pretty significant and historic. And I think without the students, not to say that there wouldn't have been that same sort of pressure, but I think that they were the ones that were leading that change. And so in terms of, the future, I continue to look towards students and towards young people and their fierce determination and their commitment to not wait for the world, to get better over time, but really to use their voices and to get organized to fight back.
Y con un hasta pronto nos despedimos, invitándolos a que nos dejen saber sus comentarios por el teléfono 414-297-7544 o a que visiten nuestro sitio web en milwaukeepbs.org y en nuestras redes sociales. Soy Patricia Gómez, deseándoles paz y bendiciones.